What would you do if your own child said you were too old, too much of a burden, and needed to be put away? Would you go quietly? Would you accept it? I did neither, and 6 months later, karma came knocking on his door. My name is Dorothy Mae Washington. I'm 68 years old, and the day my only son told me I was no longer wanted in his life was the same day I stopped being the woman who raised him. I became something else entirely, something he should have feared. It started on my birthday, March 14th, a Thursday. I remember because Thursdays were always my favorite. That was the day I used to take my son Michael to the library when he was little. We'd sit in the children's section, and I'd read to him for hours. "Mama," he used to say, "you have the best voice in the whole world." That Thursday, my 68th birthday, I woke up early like I always did. I made myself a cup of coffee, the strong kind, the way my late husband used to make it. I sat at the kitchen table in the house I'd lived in for 42 years, the same house where I'd raised Michael alone after his daddy died from a heart attack when the boy was only 7. I'd worked 2 jobs for 15 years. During the day, I cleaned offices downtown. At night, I worked at the hospital cafeteria. Every dollar I saved, every hour I worked, it was all for Michael. To give him what I never had, a college education, a chance at a better life. And he took it. He graduated from Howard University with honors, got himself a good job at a consulting firm, married a woman named Vanessa, a lawyer's daughter from Atlanta. They had a big house in the suburbs, 2 cars, and a lifestyle I could barely recognize. I was proud of him, so proud it hurts sometimes. That morning, I waited for his call. Every year on my birthday, Michael would call me first thing. "Happy birthday, Mama," he'd say. Sometimes he'd sing, off-key and laughing. Sometimes he'd just talk, telling me about his life, his work, his plans. But that morning, my phone stayed silent. By noon, I started to worry. I called him, no answer. I called again, straight to voicemail. At 3 p.m., I heard a car pull up outside. I looked through the window and saw Michael's black SUV. My heart lifted. He came. He remembered. I opened the door before he could knock, my arms already reaching for a hug. But Michael didn't hug me. He stood on my porch with his wife Vanessa beside him, and in his hand was a folder, a thick, official-looking folder. "Hi, Mama," he said. His voice was flat, cold, like he was talking to a stranger. "Baby, I thought you forgot my birthday," I said, smiling, trying to ignore the strange energy coming off him like heat from asphalt. "We didn't forget," Vanessa said. She was a petite woman, light-skinned with straightened hair and a smile that never reached her eyes. "We actually have something for you." Michael handed me the folder without a word. I opened it slowly, confused. Inside was a brochure, glossy, full of pictures. "Sunset Meadows Retirement Community," it read. There were photos of old people smiling, sitting in rocking chairs, playing cards, walking through gardens. "What is this?" I asked. Michael cleared his throat. "Mama, we need to talk." "About what?"
About your living situation. I felt something cold creep into my chest. My living situation? I live here, in my house, the house your daddy and I bought in 1982. Vanessa stepped forward. "Mrs. Washington, we know this is difficult, but we've been discussing this for a while now. You're getting older. This house is too big for you. You're all alone here. What if something happens? What if you fall and no one's around?" "I'm 68, not 98, I said, my voice sharper than I intended. "I can take care of myself." Michael sighed. Mama, you're not thinking clearly. Last month, you forgot to turn off the stove. You left the water running in the bathroom. You told me yourself you've been feeling tired all the time. Everyone gets tired, Michael. It's more than that. You're not safe here. I looked at my son. Really looked at him. The boy I'd raised. The man I'd sacrificed everything for. And I saw something in his eyes I'd never seen before. Impatience. Annoyance. Like I was a problem he needed to solve. "So, you want to put me in a home?" I asked, quietly. "It's not putting you anywhere," Vanessa said, her voice sugary and condescending. "It's giving you a better quality of life. Sunset Meadows is beautiful. You'll have your own room, meals prepared for you, activities, people your own age to talk to. I have people to talk to. I have my church, I have my neighbors, I have my book club." "Mama, we've already paid the deposit," Michael said, cutting me off. "You move in next week." The words hit me like a slap. "You already paid?" "Yes, it's done. We cleared out your schedule. We'll help you pack this weekend." I felt my legs go weak. I sat down hard in the chair by the door, the same chair I used to sit in when I waited for Michael to come home from school. "And what about my house?" I whispered. Vanessa and Michael exchanged a look. That look. The kind married people give each other when they've already had the conversation in private. "We're going to sell it. The market is good right now. This neighborhood is gentrifying. We can get a great price." "Sell it?" My voice cracked. "This is my house." "Mama, you can't maintain it anymore. And honestly, the money from the sale will help cover your care at Sunset Meadows. That place isn't cheap." "I have savings." "Not enough," Vanessa said quickly, too quickly. I looked at her, really looked at her, and I saw it. The hunger, the calculation. She wasn't worried about me. She was worried about her inheritance. "You want my house," I said slowly. "Mama, don't be dramatic." "You want to put me away so you can sell my house and take the money?" "That's not what this is about." "Then what is it about, Michael? Tell me. Because I raised you alone. I worked myself to the bone for you. I never remarried because I wanted to focus on you. And now you're throwing me away? Like I'm garbage?" Michael's face hardened. "You're being unreasonable." "I'm being unreasonable?" "Yes, you are. Mama, you're old. You're a burden. I have my own life now. Vanessa and I are trying to start a family, and we can't do that while worrying about you every single day." The word hit me like a bullet. Burden. I stared at my son, and for the first time in my life, I didn't recognize him. "Get out of my house," I whispered. "Mama, get out of my house." Michael stood there for a moment, his jaw tight. Then he turned and walked away. Vanessa followed, but not before she placed a business card on the table. "The moving company will be here Saturday at 9 a.m. Be ready." And just like that, they were gone. I sat in that chair for hours. I didn't cry. I didn't scream. I just sat there, staring at the brochure in my hands, feeling something inside me shift. My son thought I was a burden. He thought I was old, weak, forgettable. He was wrong. And in 6 months, he would find out just how wrong he was. That Saturday morning came too fast. I barely slept. Every time I closed my eyes, I heard Michael's voice saying that word, burden. At 8:45 a.m., I heard the truck pull up. 2 young men, couldn't have been older than 25, knocked on my door. They were polite, professional. They had no idea they were helping to dismantle a woman's entire life. Mrs. Washington, we're here from Quick Move Services. Your son hired us to help with your relocation. Relocation. Such a clean word for such a dirty thing. Come in, I said quietly. They started with the living room, boxing up photo albums, the ceramic angels I'd collected over the years, my husband's reading chair that I'd kept covered in plastic for 15 years because I couldn't bear to sit in it. Michael and Vanessa arrived at 10 a.m. Vanessa was dressed like she was going to brunch, not helping her elderly mother-in-law move into a nursing home. Michael avoided my eyes. "Mama, we're going to put most of your furniture in storage," he said, clipboard in hands like he was managing a corporate project. "Sunset Meadows is already furnished, so you won't need much." "And my house?" I asked. "The realtor is coming Monday to do the listing photos. We're hoping to have it on the market by Wednesday." "That fast?" "The market moves quick, Mrs. Washington," Vanessa said, walking through my kitchen, opening cabinets, making notes on her phone. "We don't want to miss the spring buyers." I watched them, my son and his wife, moving through my home like vultures, cataloging everything, deciding what had value and what didn't. And then I remembered something that made my heart start beating faster. The lockbox. When my husband died, he'd left me a small metal lockbox. He'd made me promise never to open it unless I absolutely had to. "Dorothy," he'd said on his deathbed, his hand squeezing mine so tight it hurt, "there's things in there that'll take care of you, but only use it when you got no other choice. You hear me?" I said yes, and I'd kept that promise for 23 years. The box was hidden in the basement, behind the old water heater, in a space so small and dirty that nobody ever looked there. "I need to use the bathroom," I told the movers. I went downstairs instead. The basement was dark, musty. I hadn't been down there in months. My knees hurt going down the steps, but I moved as fast as I could. I heard footsteps above me, Vanessa's heels clicking on the hardwood floor. I found the lockbox exactly where I'd left it, covered in dust, small, unimpressive. The key was on a chain I'd worn around my neck every day for 23 years, hidden under my clothes. I opened it. Inside were papers, documents, and a letter in my husband's handwriting. "Dorothy, my love, if you're reading this, I'm gone, and you're in trouble. I never told you this because I didn't want you to worry, but I was smarter with money than I let on. The papers in this box are property deeds, 4 of them. I bought them years ago when the city was selling off abandoned buildings for cheap. I fixed them up quiet, rented them out under a business name you never knew about. By now, if you held on to them, they're worth something, maybe a lot. Go to my lawyer, James Peterson. He knows everything. He'll help you. Don't let nobody take what's yours. I love you. Always. William." My hands shook as I read. 4 properties. I owned 4 rental properties, and I never knew. I heard Vanessa's voice from upstairs. "Mrs. Washington, where are you?" I shoved the lockbox under my coat and climbed back upstairs, my mind racing. "I'm here," I called out. "Are you okay? You look pale." "I'm fine. Just old and tired, remember?" Vanessa's smile was thin. "Why don't you sit down? We'll handle everything." I sat in my husband's chair and watched them pack my life into boxes. But now I wasn't defeated. I was calculating. By 2 p.m., everything was loaded. The movers drove off with my belongings. Michael and Vanessa walked me to their car. "You'll love Sunset Meadows, Mama," Michael said.
helping me into the back seat like I was a child. It's beautiful, clean, safe. Safe, like I needed to be protected from my own life. The drive took 30 minutes. Sunset Meadows was on the outskirts of town, past the mall, past the good neighborhoods, out where the highway turned to 2 lanes and the trees got thicker. It looked nice enough. Modern building, well-maintained lawn, a sign that said, "Where every day is golden." But it wasn't my home. A woman in scrubs met me at the door. "Mrs. Washington? Welcome. I'm Candace, the director. Let me show you to your room." My room was on the second floor. Small, clean, a single bed, a dresser, a chair by the window that looked out over the parking lot. There was a bathroom attached and a closet barely big enough for half my clothes. "All your meals are served in the dining hall," Candace said brightly. "Breakfast at 7, lunch at noon, dinner at 5. We have bingo on Tuesdays, arts and crafts on Thursdays, and church services on Sundays." I nodded, not really listening. Michael set down my suitcase. "I'll come visit next week, Mama." "Sure, you will," I said quietly. He hesitated, guilt flashing across his face for just a second. Then Vanessa touched his arm. "We should go. We have dinner reservations at 6. They left. Just like that. My son walked out of my new prison without looking back. I sat on the bed and looked around the room that was supposed to be my home now. 4 white walls, a window with blinds, a TV mounted on the wall that I'd probably never turn on. And then I pulled out my phone. I still had it, even though Vanessa had suggested I might not need it at Sunset Meadows. I called information. "I need the number for James Peterson, attorney at law." The operator connected me. A voice answered. "Peterson and Associates?" "My name is Dorothy Washington. My husband was William Washington. He told me to call you if I ever needed help." There was a pause. "Mrs. Washington, I've been waiting for your call for over 20 years. Can you come see me? I'm at Sunset Meadows Retirement Community. I'll be there Monday morning." I hung up and looked out the window. Down in the parking lot, I could see Michael's SUV pulling away. He thought this was the end. He thought he'd solved his problem, put the old lady away, sold her house, moved on with his life. But this wasn't the end. This was just the beginning. Because my husband hadn't just left me properties. He'd left me options and power. And I was about to teach my son a lesson he should have learned a long time ago. You don't throw away the woman who gave you life. Not without consequences. Monday morning arrived slow and heavy. I'd spent the entire weekend in that small room at Sunset Meadows, barely eating, barely sleeping. The other residents tried to talk to me. An old woman named Betty kept knocking on my door, asking if I wanted to play cards. A man in a wheelchair named Harold invited me to watch a movie in the common room. I said no to everything. I wasn't here to make friends. I was here because my son had thrown me away. But that was about to change. At 9 a.m., the front desk called my room. "Mrs. Washington, you have a visitor." I grabbed my purse, the one with the lockbox hidden at the bottom, and made my way downstairs. My knees hurt on the steps, but I didn't care. Pain was temporary. What I was about to do would last forever. James Peterson was waiting in the lobby. He was a tall black man, maybe in his early 60s, with silver hair and a well-tailored suit. He stood when he saw me, extending his hand. "Mrs. Washington, it's an honor to finally meet you. Your husband spoke of you often." "You knew William well?" "Very well. We went to college together. He trusted me with everything. Please, is there somewhere private we can talk?" I led him to a small visitor's room off the main hall. It was meant for families, but it was empty now. We sat across from each other at a table that smelled like lemon cleaner. I pulled out the lockbox and placed it between us. William left me this. I found it Saturday right before my son moved me here. James opened the box carefully, like it was something sacred. He pulled out the documents and read them slowly, nodding as he went. "Do you know what these are worth?" he asked after a long silence. "I have no idea." "Mrs. Washington, your husband was a very smart man. These 4 properties are in what's now the downtown district. The city has been gentrifying that area for the past 10 years. Each of these buildings is currently being rented out. The property management company has been depositing the rental income into a trust account in your name." My heart stopped. A trust account? "Yes, your husband set it up so that you'd have income without having to manage the properties yourself. The account has been accumulating funds for over 20 years. "How much?" James pulled out his phone, made a call, spoke quietly to someone on the other end. Then he looked at me. "As of this morning, the trust account has $847,000 in it." I couldn't breathe. I couldn't speak. I just stared at him. "And the properties themselves, if you sold them today, you'd get roughly $2.3 million, maybe more." My hands started shaking. I gripped the edge of the table. "I'm a millionaire?" "Yes, ma'am, you are." I thought about my son, about Vanessa, about how they'd looked at me like I was a burden, a problem, something to be managed and discarded. And they had no idea. "James," I said slowly, "I need you to help me with something. Anything. My son put me in here because he wants to sell my house. He thinks I'm broke. He thinks I'm helpless. And I want him to keep thinking that. For now." James leaned back, a small smile playing at his lips. "What do you have in mind?" I told him everything. The way Michael had spoken to me. The way Vanessa had walked through my house like she already owned it. The way they'd looked at me like I was already dead. "I don't want revenge," I said carefully. "I want justice. I want my son to understand what he's done. And I want him to face the consequences." "What consequences specifically?" I thought about a moment. "My house. He's going to sell it, right?" "According to what you've told me, yes." "Can you buy it?" James raised an eyebrow. "Buy your own house?" "Through the trust, anonymously. When it goes on the market, I want you to buy it at asking price. Cash offer, quick close. But I don't want Michael to know it's me." "That's easily done. Anything else?" "Yes. I want you to find out everything about Michael's finances, his business, his marriage, his debts, everything." "That's more complicated, but not impossible." "And I want to stay here, at Sunset Meadows, for now." Let him think he won. Let him think I'm just a sad old lady who's given up. James was quiet for a moment. Then he nodded. "I'll start the paperwork today." We spent the next hour going over details. James explained that the trust was ironclad, that William had made sure no one could touch it without my explicit permission. He also explained that I could access the money anytime I wanted, that I could leave Sunset Meadows today if I chose to. But I didn't choose to. Not yet. "How long do you think it'll take," I asked, "to buy the house? If they list it Wednesday like you said, I can have an offer in by Thursday, close in 2 weeks, maybe less." "And investigating Michael?" "I have a private investigator I use for financial cases. Give me a week." We shook hands. James promised to call me with updates, to use my cell phone, not the Sunset Meadows main line. After he left, I went back to my room. I sat in the chair by the window and looked out at the parking lot again. But this time, I wasn't looking at a prison. I was looking at a war room. That afternoon, Vanessa called me. Not Michael. Vanessa. Mrs. Washington, hi. Just checking in. How you settling in? Her voice was so sweet, it made my teeth hurt. I'm fine. That's wonderful. Listen, I wanted to let you know the realtor came today. The house looks amazing. We're listing it at $425,000. She thinks we'll have offers by the weekend. $425,000. My house. The house my husband and I bought for $62,000 in 1982. That's nice. We'll make sure you get a portion of the proceeds, of course, to help with your care. A portion of my own house. How generous. Well, we want to make sure you're taken care of. Anyway, Michael says he'll come visit this weekend. He's been so busy with work. I'm sure he has. Okay, well, you take care. Bye. She hung up before I could respond. I sat there, phone in my hand, and I smiled. Let them think they'd won. Let them list the house, let them count their money before it even came in. Because in 2 weeks, when that house sold, they wouldn't be getting a dime. And that would just be the beginning. I called James back. I have another request. Tell me. When you buy the house, I want you to send a letter to Michael, telling him the sale went through, but I want you to phrase it so he thinks the money's coming. I want him to spend it in his mind. I want him to make plans. And then, I want him to find out the money's gone. And I want to be there when he does. James was quiet. Then he laughed, a deep, genuine laugh. Mrs. Washington, your husband would be very proud of you. I hope so, because what I'm about to do, I'm doing it for both of us.
The house went on the market Wednesday morning, just like Vanessa said it would. I know because James sent me the listing. He forwarded it to my email with no comment, just a link. I opened it on my phone, sitting in my small room at Sunset Meadows, and I stared at the photos. My house. My home. The place where I'd lived for 42 years, where I'd raised my son, where my husband had died in my arms on a Sunday morning while the church bells rang down the street. The realtor had staged it beautifully. They'd removed all my personal items, all the photos, all the things that made it mine. It looked like a magazine spread. Clean, modern, empty, like I'd never existed there at all. The description read, charming 3-bedroom, 2-bathroom home in up-and-coming neighborhood. Original hardwood floors, updated kitchen, large backyard. Perfect for young families looking to invest in a growing community. Young families. They were erasing me even in the listing. I closed the link and called James. I saw it, I said. Are you ready? Make the offer. Full asking price, cash. Close in 10 days. Consider it done. I hung up and sat very still. Around me, I could hear the sounds of Sunset Meadows, someone's TV playing too loud, a woman laughing in the hallway, the dinner bell ringing downstairs. This place wasn't horrible. The staff was kind, the food was decent. Some of the residents were actually interesting people with full lives behind them. But it wasn't my home. And I was only here because my son had decided I was disposable. That evening, Betty knocked on my door again. She was a small woman, maybe 75, with white hair and bright eyes behind thick glasses. Dorothy, honey, you've been in this room for 4 days. You need to eat something besides crackers. Come down to dinner with me. I almost said no, but something in her face, some genuine kindness,
made me pause. "All right," I said. We went downstairs together. The dining hall was large, filled with round tables and older folks in various states of health and mobility. Some were sharp, playing cards and telling jokes. Others sat quietly, staring at nothing. I wondered which group I'd end up in if I stayed here long enough. Betty introduced me to her table. Harold, the man in the wheelchair I'd met before, a woman named Lucille who'd been a jazz singer in the 60s, a quiet man named Frank who'd worked for the post office for 40 years. "This is Dorothy," Betty announced. "She just moved in. Her son put her here." The table went quiet. Everyone looked at me with the same expression: recognition, understanding. "Mine did too," Lucille said softly. "2 years ago. Haven't seen him since." "Mine comes once a month," Harold said. "Stays for 15 minutes, looks at his watch the whole time." "Mine died in a car accident," Betty said matter-of-factly, "so I came here on my own. Figured it was better than dying alone in my apartment." We ate in comfortable silence for a while. Meatloaf and mashed potatoes, green beans, dinner rolls. It was actually pretty good. "So why'd your son do it?" Lucille asked me halfway through the meal. "Money?" I nodded. "My house. He wants to sell it." "They always do," Harold said. "My daughter sold my car the day after she moved me in here. Said I didn't need it anymore." "My son took my jewelry," Lucille added. "My mama's wedding ring, my grandmother's pearls. Said he was keeping them safe." I listened to their stories, one after another. Children who decided their parents were burdens, who'd taken their things, sold their homes, erased their lives. And I felt something shift inside me. This wasn't just about me and Michael. This was bigger. "What did you do?" I asked them. "When they did this to you?" Betty shrugged. "What could we do? We're old, we're in the way. That's just how it is." "No," I said firmly. "That's not how it has to be." They all looked at me. "What do you mean?" Frank asked. It was the first time he'd spoken. "I mean, we're not dead yet. We're not powerless, and we don't have to just accept being thrown away." Harold laughed, but it was bitter. Easy to say, hard to do. "Maybe," I said, "but I'm going to try." I didn't tell them about the money, about James, about the plan, but I made a decision right there at that table. When this was over, when I taught Michael his lesson, I was going to do something with that money. Something that mattered. That night, Michael finally called me. Not a visit, just a call. "Hey, Mama, how are you doing?" His voice was light, easy, like nothing had happened. "I'm fine, Michael." "Good, good. Listen, I've got some great news. The house already has 3 offers, all above asking price. Vanessa thinks we should take the highest one, but I want to make sure you're okay with it." He wanted to make sure I was okay with it. Like I had a choice. "Do what you think is best," I said quietly. "Thanks, Mama. I knew you'd understand. This money is going to really help us out. Vanessa and I are looking at a bigger house, maybe in that new development near the lake. And we're thinking about starting a family soon." A family? He was going to start a family? After he just threw away the woman who gave him life? "That's wonderful, Michael." "Yeah. Oh, and I'll come visit soon, I promise. Things are just really busy right now." "I understand." "Love you, Mama." He hung up before I could say it back. Not that I was going to. I sat on my bed, hand in hand, and I waited. 2 days later, James called me. It's done. I submitted the offer this morning. All cash, no contingencies, 10-day close. The realtor called me back within an hour. They accepted. Already? Your son was very motivated to sell quickly. He didn't even try to negotiate. I felt a cold satisfaction settle in my chest. What happens now? Now we wait. The title company is processing the paperwork. In 10 days, the house transfers to the trust. Your son will get a notification that the sale is complete and the funds are being processed. And then he'll wait for money. That's never coming, because the money is already yours. I closed my eyes. How long until he figures it out? Depends on how closely he's paying attention. Could be a week, could be a month. But eventually, he'll call the title company asking where his check is, and they'll tell him the funds were transferred to the seller. And the seller is me. Technically, the seller is the trust, which you control. He won't be able to access any of it. Good. James was quiet for a moment. Mrs. Washington, I have the report from the investigator about your son's finances. Tell me. He's in debt. Significant debt. His and his wife have been living beyond their means for years. Credit cards maxed out, car payments they can barely afford. They just put a down payment on that new house you mentioned. They were counting on your house sale to cover it. I stomach twisted. How much do they owe? About $180,000 in total. And how much were they expecting from my house? After the realtor's commission and fees, probably around $390,000. They were planning to use half to pay off debts and half for the new house. I did the math in my head. Without that money, they couldn't afford anything. The new house would fall through, the debts would pile up, everything would collapse. Good, I said again, but this time my voice shook. Because he was still my son, and part of me still loved him. But a bigger part of me knew he needed to learn this lesson.
James, I said, when the money doesn't come, what will happen? They'll lose the new house deposit. The debts will start defaulting. His credit will be destroyed. And he'll have to face what he's done. I nodded, even though he couldn't see me. Let it happen. Are you sure? I've never been more sure of anything in my life.
3 weeks passed. 3 weeks of silence from Michael. No calls, no visits, nothing. I'd settled into a routine at Sunset Meadows. Breakfast with Betty and the group, walks in the garden when my knees allowed it, phone calls with James every few days to track the progress of my plan. The house had officially closed. The title was transferred. The money sat safely in the trust account, right next to the $847,000 that had been accumulating for 23 years. I was worth over $1.2 million now, sitting in a nursing home, eating meatloaf off plastic trays, pretending to be the helpless old woman my son believed I was. It was almost funny. Almost. On a Tuesday morning, exactly 22 days after the house sold, my phone rang. Michael's name lit up the screen. I let it ring 3 times before I answered. Hello? Mama. His voice was different, tight, strained. Mama, I need to talk to you about something. What is it, baby? The house. There's a problem with the house sale. I sat up straighter in my chair. What kind of problem? The money. We haven't received the money yet. The title company keeps saying it's been transferred, but it's not in our account. Vanessa's been calling them every day, and they keep giving us the runaround." "That's strange," I said slowly. "Did you talk to the realtor?" "Yes. She says everything went through on her end. The sale closed 3 weeks ago. But the money, Mama, we need that money. We were supposed to close on the new house last week, and we couldn't because the funds aren't there." "Oh no. What happened with the new house?" "We lost the deposit. $40,000, Mama, just gone. And now the sellers are threatening to sue us for backing out." I closed my eyes. It was happening exactly like James said it would. "I'm sorry, Michael. I don't understand these things. Maybe you need to get a lawyer?" "We can't afford a lawyer. That's the whole point." His voice cracked. "Mama, I don't know what to do. Vanessa is furious. She's saying this is all my fault. We have bills due. The credit cards are maxed out. I thought selling your house would fix everything." Selling your house, not my house. Your house. Like it had been his all along. "Michael," I said carefully, "where exactly was the money supposed to go?" "Into our joint account. That's what we set up with the title company. But they're saying the money was transferred to some trust or something. They won't tell us anything else. Privacy laws or whatever." A trust. He was so close to figuring it out. "Maybe there was a mistake," I suggested. "These things happen with estates sometimes." "This wasn't an estate, Mama. This was a straightforward house sale. The money should have come to us." "To us? I thought you said a portion would come to me for my care." Silence on the other end. Long, heavy silence. "We were going to give you some," he said finally, "after we handled our expenses." "I see." "Mama, I don't have time for this right now. I need to figure out where that money went. I'll call you later." He hung up. No goodbye. No, I love you. I sat there, holding the phone, feeling the weight of what I'd done, what I was still doing. Betty knocked on my door an hour later. "You coming to lunch?" "Not today, Betty. I'm not feeling well." "You want me to bring you something?" "No, thank you. I just need to rest." She left reluctantly. I appreciated her kindness. In the 3 weeks I'd been here, she'd become something like a friend. A real friend, not someone who wanted something from me. That afternoon, James called. He's starting to dig. The investigator says Michael hired a lawyer. Cheap one, but a lawyer nonetheless. They're trying to trace the funds. Will they find out it was me? Eventually, yes. The trust is legal and legitimate, but if they dig deep enough, they'll see your name attached. It's just a matter of time. How much time? A week, maybe 2. And what happens when he finds out? That depends on what he does with the information. He could try to sue, but he'd lose. The house was yours. You had every right to sell it however you wanted. He has no legal claim to those funds.
But he thought he did. Yes, and that's the real crime here, isn't it? Not what you did, but what he assumed he was entitled to. I thought about that. About entitlement. About how I'd raised my son to work hard, to earn what he got, to respect others. And somehow, he turned into a man who thought his mother's home was his inheritance before she was even dead. 2 days later, Vanessa called me. Not Michael, Vanessa. "Mrs. Washington, we need to talk." Her voice wasn't sweet anymore. It was cold, hard. "Hello, Vanessa. Did you know about this? About the trust?" My heart started beating faster. They'd found it. "What trust, dear?" "Don't play dumb with me. The trust that bought your house. The one that took our money." "Vanessa, I don't know what you're talking about." "The lawyer found it. The house was sold to something called the William Washington Family Trust. That's your husband's name. Did you set this up? Did you do this to us?" I could hear Michael in the background, his voice sharp and angry, saying something I couldn't make out. "I didn't set up anything," I said. It wasn't a lie. William had set it up. I just activated it.
Then how do you explain this? How do you explain that the money from your house went into a trust with your husband's name? I can't explain it, Vanessa. Maybe Williams set something up years ago. Maybe there were legal protections I didn't know about. I'm just an old woman. I don't understand these things. Bullshit. The word came out like a slap. You knew, and you let us count on that money. We've lost everything because of you. The new house, our savings, everything. I'm sorry you're having financial troubles. Financial troubles? We're about to lose our car, Mrs. Washington. Our credit is destroyed. Michael might lose his job because he can't focus on anything, all because you decided to be petty and vengeful. Vengeful? The word struck something in me, something hot and sharp. Vengeful would have been throwing you out on the street the way you threw me in here. Vengeful would have been calling you a burden and acting like you were already dead. You are dead to us now, Vanessa said, her voice shaking with rage. You hear me? You're dead. Don't expect any more calls. Don't expect any visits. You want to die alone in that place? Fine, die alone. She hung up. I sat there, phone in my hand, and for the first time since this started, I cried. Not because of what Vanessa said, but because my son had let her say it. He was in the background, and he'd let his wife tell his mother she was dead to them. I cried for the little boy who used to hold my hand at the library, for the teenager who used to tell me I was the best mama in the world, for the man I thought I'd raised. That man was gone. Maybe he never really existed. Betty found me an hour later, sitting in the dark, tears dried on my face. "Oh, honey," she said, sitting down beside me. "What happened?" I told her everything, the whole story, the house, the money, the plan, the phone call. When I finished, Betty was quiet for a long time. "Did you do the right thing?" she finally asked. "I don't know," I whispered. "I thought I was teaching him a lesson, but maybe I just lost my son forever." "Dorothy, listen to me. You didn't lose your son. He lost himself long before this. And sometimes the only way people find themselves again is by losing everything else first. What if he doesn't? What if he just stays angry and broken? Then that's his choice. You can't fix people who don't want to be fixed. All you can do is protect yourself and hope they wake up." She held my hand while I cried some more. And somewhere in the middle of that grief, I made a decision. Tomorrow, I was going to call James, and I was going to start the next phase of my plan, because this wasn't over yet. I called James the next morning at 7 a.m. "I want to leave Sunset Meadows," I said without preamble. "When?" "Today. Now. As soon as possible." "Where do you want to go?" I thought about my house, the one that was now mine again, legally and completely. But I couldn't go back there. Not yet. That house held too many memories, and I needed something new, something that was mine alone. "I want you to find me an apartment, something nice, downtown, with a view. I want to start over. Consider it done. I'll have options for you by this afternoon. And James, I want to do something else with the money." "What's that?" "I want to start a foundation for elderly people whose families have abandoned them. I want to help people like Betty and Harold and Lucille, people who've been thrown away." There was a pause on the other end. Then James said quietly, "Mrs. Washington, that's a beautiful idea. Can you help me set it up?" "I can, and I will." "Good. Because I've been sitting in this room feeling sorry for myself for too long. It's time to do something that matters. By noon, I'd packed my things. I didn't have much. The movers had taken most of my belongings when Michael put me here, and I'd only brought one suitcase of clothes and personal items. Candace, the director, was surprised when I told her I was leaving. "Mrs. Washington, is everything all right? Did something happen?" "Everything's fine. I've just decided this isn't the right place for me." "But your son." "My son doesn't make my decisions. I do." I said goodbye to Betty and the others at lunch. They were happy for me, but also sad. We'd become friends in the short time I'd been there. "You're really leaving?" Betty asked, her eyes watery behind her glasses. "I am, but I'm not forgetting you. Any of you. I promise." "Where are you going?" "Somewhere I should have gone a long time ago. Somewhere that's mine." Harold wheeled up beside me. "You give that son of yours hell, Dorothy, for all of us." "I'm not trying to give him hell," I said. "I'm trying to give him truth. There's a difference." James picked me up at 2 p.m. in a sleek black car. He loaded my suitcase in the trunk and opened the passenger door for me like I was somebody important. Maybe I was. We drove downtown past the old neighborhoods, past the gentrified blocks where coffee shops and boutiques had replaced corner stores and barbershops. The city had changed so much in the years I'd spent in my house, raising my son, working my jobs. I'd been too busy surviving to notice the world moving on without me. James pulled up in front of a tall building, all glass and steel, with a doorman and a lobby that looked like a hotel. "This is it. 15th floor, 2 bedrooms, 2 bathrooms, balcony with a city view, fully furnished, and you can move in today." We took the elevator up. The apartment was beautiful. Hardwood floors, modern kitchen, floor-to-ceiling windows that looked out over the city. It was the kind of place I'd cleaned as a young woman, never imagining I'd live in one. "What do you think?" I walked to the window and looked out. I could see the whole city from here. The buildings, the streets, the river in the distance. My old neighborhood was somewhere out there, blocks and blocks away. I was a long way from where I'd started. "It's perfect," I said. James left me with a key, a credit card attached to the trust account, and a promise to call me Monday about the foundation. I spent the rest of the afternoon just sitting by the window, watching the city, thinking about everything that had happened. 45 days ago, I was a woman who thought her worth was tied to her son's love. A woman who let herself be discarded because she didn't know any better. Now, I was someone different. Someone who discovered she had power, resources, options. But I was also someone who'd lost her only child. That night, I ordered takeout from a restaurant downstairs. Salmon and roasted vegetables. Food I never let myself buy when I was pinching pennies for Michael's future. I ate alone on my new balcony, watching the sunset paint the sky orange and pink. And I thought about what came next. 3 days later, on Saturday morning, my phone rang. Unknown number. I almost didn't answer, but something made me pick up. "Hello?" "Mama." "Michael. Mama, can we talk, please?" "We're talking now." "No, I mean in person. Can I come see you? I went to Sunset Meadows and they said you left. Where are you?" I looked around my apartment, my beautiful, expensive apartment that my son knew nothing about. "I'm at a friend's place," I lied. "What do you want, Michael?" "I want to apologize. I need to apologize. Mama, I've been doing a lot of thinking these past few days about what I did, about how I treated you. What brought this on? Everything fell apart, Mama. The new house is gone. Vanessa left me. She moved back to Atlanta with her parents. She said I was a failure, that I couldn't even manage my own mother's estate properly. So Vanessa had left him. I should have felt satisfaction, but all I felt was sad. I'm sorry to hear that, Michael. Are you? Because this is what you wanted, isn't it? You did this on purpose. The trust, the house, all of it. You knew what would happen. I knew you needed to learn something. Learn what? That you're vindictive? That you'd rather destroy my life than forgive me? I knew you needed to learn what it feels like to lose everything. The way you made me lose everything when you threw me away. Silence. Long and heavy. I didn't throw you away, he said finally, his voice small. Yes, you did. You put me in a nursing home so you could sell my house. You called me a burden. You stopped seeing me as a person and started seeing me as a payout. And when I needed you most, you weren't there. I'm sorry, Mama. I'm so sorry. I was greedy. I was selfish. Vanessa got in my head, and I let her convince me that you were in the way, that we deserved your house more than you did. But now I know I was wrong. Do you, or are you just sorry because everything fell apart? Both. Both, Mama. I'm sorry because I lost everything, but I'm also sorry because I hurt you. Because I treated you like you didn't matter. You're my mother. You raised me alone. You gave me everything, and I repaid you by throwing you away. I felt tears prick my eyes. This was what I wanted. An apology, recognition, understanding. But it felt hollow somehow. Empty. Where are you staying? I asked.
With a friend. I can't afford my apartment anymore. I had to give it up. And your job? I still have it, barely, but I'm on thin ice. What do you want from me, Michael? I want to make things right. I don't know how. I don't know if I can, but I want to try. Please, Mama, can I see you? I looked out my window at the city below, at the life I'd built in the ashes of the one he'd burned down. I'll think about it, I said. Mama, I said I'll think about it. That's all I can give you right now. I hung up before he could say anything else. And I sat there on my couch, crying again, because part of me wanted to run to him, to forgive him, to fix everything like I'd always done. But another part of me, the part that had grown stronger these past weeks, knew that forgiveness without consequences was just enabling. Michael needed to sit in what he'd done. He needed to feel it, fully. And when the time was right, maybe we could begin to rebuild, but that time wasn't now. James called me Monday morning about the foundation. We decided to call it the Dorothy Mae Washington Foundation for Elder Dignity. I love it, I said. When can we start? We can file the paperwork this week. You'll need to decide how you want to structure it, what services to offer. I want to help people stay in their homes. I want to provide legal help for elders being taken advantage of by their families. I want to create support groups, and I want to fund visits, activities, connection for people who've been abandoned. That's ambitious. I have the money, I have the time, and I have the experience. Why not be ambitious? James laughed. Your husband would be so proud of you, Mrs. Washington. I hope so. I'm finally becoming the woman he always believed I was. That afternoon,
I went back to Sunset Meadows, not as a resident, as a visitor. Betty lit up when she saw me. Dorothy, look at you. You look different, happier. I am happier, and I have something to tell you all. I gathered Betty, Harold, Lucille, and Frank in the common room, and I told them about the foundation. I want to help people like us, people who've been forgotten, and I want you all to help me do it. Help you how? Harold asked. Be advisors. Tell me what you need, what others need. Help me make this real. They all looked at each other. Then Betty started crying. You mean that? You really want our help? I do, because you understand this in a way I'm still learning, and together we can make a difference. For the first time in years, I felt purpose. Not as someone's mother, not as someone's wife, but as myself. Dorothy Mae Washington, 78 years old, worth over $1 million, and finally, free. 6 months passed. 6 months of building the foundation, of meeting with lawyers and accountants, of visiting nursing homes and talking to forgotten elders. 6 months of learning who I was outside of being Michael's mother. The Dorothy Mae Washington Foundation for Elder Dignity opened its doors on a cold November morning. We'd rented a small office downtown, hired 2 social workers, and partnered with 3 law firms who agreed to do pro bono work for our clients. Betty became our client liaison. Harold managed our volunteer program from his wheelchair. Lucille led our weekly support groups, singing old jazz songs that made people remember they were still alive. Frank handled our financial documentation with the precision of his 40 years at the post office. We helped 12 families in our first month. Elderly people being pressured to sign over property. Grandparents being financially abused by their own children. Widows being manipulated into nursing homes they didn't need. Every case broke my heart, and every case made me stronger. Michael called me once a week, every Saturday at 10 a.m., like clockwork. At first, I didn't answer. Then I started picking up but keeping the conversation short. He'd tell me about his life, his new apartment, his job, his therapy sessions. Yes, therapy. He'd started seeing someone after Vanessa left, working through his relationship with money, with me, with his own sense of worth. I was proud of him for that, but I still wasn't ready. On the 6-month anniversary of the day he'd thrown me away, Michael called again. Mama, I know you're busy. I know you have your foundation and your new life, but I need to ask you something. What is it? Can I see you in person, please? I've been working on myself. I've been trying to understand what I did wrong, and I think I finally get it, but I need to say it to your face. I looked around my apartment, the home I'd made for myself, the life I'd built from the ashes of the one he'd burned. All right, I said, come to my place tomorrow, 2 p.m. I gave him the address and hung up. The next day, I spent the morning cleaning, even though the apartment was already spotless. I made coffee. I put out cookies I'd baked with Betty the day before. I was nervous in a way I hadn't been in months. At exactly 2 p.m., the doorman called up. Mrs. Washington, you have a visitor, Michael Washington. Send him up. I opened the door before he could knock, and I barely recognized him. He'd lost weight. His suit, the same expensive one he'd worn when he brought me that nursing home brochure, hung loose on his frame. His eyes had dark circles under them. His hair was graying at the temples. He looked like he'd aged 10 years in 6 months. Mama, he said, his voice breaking. We stood there in the doorway for a long moment. Then I stepped aside. "Come in." He walked into my apartment slowly, taking in everything: the expensive furniture, the city view, the art on the walls, the life I'd built without him. "Mama, this place is beautiful. How did you—" "Sit down, Michael." He sat on the couch. I sat across from him in the armchair. The coffee table between us felt like an ocean. "You wanted to talk, so talk." He took a deep breath. "I've been in therapy for 4 months now, and my therapist asked me to write you a letter to explain everything I was feeling, everything I'd done wrong, everything I wanted to say but didn't know how." He pulled an envelope from his jacket pocket. His hands were shaking. "Can I read it to you?" "Go ahead." He opened the letter and began to read. "Dear Mama, I don't know how to start this except to say I'm sorry. Those 2 words don't feel like enough for what I did, but they're all I have. I threw you away. I treated you like you were a burden, like you were in my way, like you were already dead. And the worst part is, I knew what I was doing was wrong. I knew it while I was doing it. But I did it anyway because I was selfish and greedy, and I convinced myself I deserved your house more than you did." His voice cracked. He paused, wiping his eyes. "Then everything fell apart. The house sale went wrong. The money disappeared. Vanessa left. My credit was destroyed. I lost everything I thought mattered. And in the middle of all that loss, I realized something. The thing I lost that hurt the most wasn't the money or the house or even my wife. It was you. It was knowing that I threw away the one person who ever loved me unconditionally, the one person who sacrificed everything for me, the one person who never asked for anything in return." He looked up from the letter, looking directly at me. "I know you did this on purpose, Mama. I know you set this up to teach me a lesson, and I'm grateful, because I needed it. I needed to lose everything to understand what I had. My therapist says that sometimes the kindest thing someone can do is let you hit rock bottom, because that's the only place you can start rebuilding from." He folded the letter carefully. "I don't expect you to forgive me. I don't expect you to let me back into your life. I don't expect anything except the chance to say I'm sorry, and I understand now what I did." I sat there looking at my son, my broken, humbled, finally seeing clearly son. "Do you know why I did this?" I asked quietly. "To punish me." "No, to save you." He looked confused. "Michael, if I'd just given you that money, if I'd let you sell my house and walk away with it, what would you have learned?" "Nothing." "Exactly. You would have learned that you could treat people like garbage and still get your want. You would have learned that your mother was just a resource to be used up. You would have become someone I didn't raise, someone I couldn't be proud of. I understand that now. Do you? Because understanding it intellectually and understanding it in your soul are 2 different things." Michael leaned forward, his hands clasped together. "Mama, I spent 3 months sleeping on a friend's couch. I ate ramen noodles for dinner because I couldn't afford anything else. I had to take the bus because I lost my car. I worked overtime just to keep my apartment, and every single day I thought about you, about how you worked 2 jobs for 15 years, about how you ate beans and rice so I could have better, about how you sacrificed everything and I repaid you by throwing me away." "And what did you learn?"
That I'm not entitled to anything, that money doesn't make you rich,
that the people who love you are worth more than any house or car or bank account. I nodded slowly. And what are you going to do with that knowledge? I'm going to spend the rest of my life proving I learned it. Not to get back in your good graces, not to get your money, but because it's the right thing to do. I stood up and walked to the window. The city stretched out below us, full of life and possibility. I'm proud of you, Michael. He stood up shocked. What? I'm proud of you for doing the work, for going to therapy, for facing what you did, for trying to be better. That's all I ever wanted for you. Not to be perfect, just to be honest and willing to grow. Does that mean you forgive me? I turned to face him. I forgave you a long time ago, but forgiveness doesn't mean everything goes back to how it was. You brought something between us, and it's going to take time to rebuild it. I'll take whatever time you need. Good, because I have conditions. Anything. First, I want you to volunteer at the foundation. Not for me, for the other elders there who've been through what I went through. I want you to see their faces, hear their stories, understand what abandonment does to people. I will. Second, I want you to continue therapy, and I want you to work on understanding your relationship with money, with worth, with value. Already doing that. Third, I want you to rebuild your life on your own. No help from me financially. You need to prove to yourself that you can stand on your own. I understand. And fourth, I want you to come to Sunday dinner. Every week. Here. We'll cook together and talk and rebuild this relationship slowly, as equals. Not as a mother and her burden, but as two adults who love each other and are learning to trust again. Michael started crying again, but this time they were tears of relief. Thank you, Mama. Thank you for not giving up on me. I never gave up on you, Michael. I just had to let you go so you could find your way back. We stood there in my apartment, the city humming outside, two people who'd been broken and were slowly learning how to heal. I didn't know if we'd ever get back to what we were, but maybe we didn't need to. Maybe we were becoming something better.